Hey, my name is Luke, and this is how I took this pretty boring synth and I turned it into this. Quite a big difference, right? I have experimented with this idea for quite a few years now, on and off. You know, I kind of forget about it, then I do it again, and every time I do it, I think, oh, this is such a sick idea. And it completely transforms pretty bog standard sounding synths or ideas, even guitars. I've done this with guitars before and vocals, into something way more interesting. It gives a little more excitement, a little more sonic character to the actual sound, which is obviously kind of what you want as an artist. So I'm going to show you the process that I took to take it from that sound to something way more interesting. And if you want to know more about making better music faster, consider signing up to my newsletter, link in the description below. Let's get on with it. So the first thing you need is your bass sound, the bass performance, right? And I have a couple of things to think about when you're doing this. The first being, choose a good sound, right? It's got to sound pretty decent, something that standalone, it really works, right? I would then say not to make it too complex. So if you listen to what's being played here, it's not difficult at all. It's all very straight. If I open up the MIDI file here, you can see it's just all eighth notes. That's it. Just doing a little arpeggio, and that's all it's doing. The sound that I'm using is Sky Keys. This is a really cool plugin. And the preset I'm using, I think, is the opening preset. It's called Everything Right, or it's the one that I've set as the default anyway. And I might have tweaked a few of the settings, but this is the starting sound. What you then want to do after this point is bounce it to audio. Now, I went through a little extra step. You don't have to, but I essentially ran it through my pedal board, which I've got set up here. I'll show you what's going on there in a second. But what I did was I bounced it to audio, ran it through a couple of these things here, and it ended up sounding like this. Sorry, let me turn that off. So it's a little bit different. It's got a little more bassiness to it, and it's got a little bit more of like a roomy reverb vibe to it. I'll just get my phone out and just record on the camera here to show you the pedal board setup that I've got, so you can see what I'm running it through here. You can see here that I've got my tuner here, and then I'm running it into this super octave pedal here by Boss, and I've got it on the poly setting. And what that's doing is it's taking the lower notes and adding a sub octave to them. So it's not affecting every note on the keyboard, it's just the sub notes there. I then ran it into this blonde Tech 21 NYC pedal. This is basically like an amp emulator here. And I used to use this all the time for live shows. It saved me lugging an amp around. I've had it absolutely years. I can't remember the exact settings, but just a little bit of drive. I then ran it into the Boss reverb here, and I just had it on the room setting, just dialed in ever so slightly. That is then running into my ISO 1, which is here, and then I'm just driving the preamp to the gain to whatever I felt was pretty good. Not too much, because I had the gain from the pedal. And then we end up back in here, and I recorded it in. And that is where I got this sound here. So if you wanted to take steps without doing the whole outboard process, you simply could just take the original sound here and load up any effects that you've got. Let's say you've got some overdrive here, and you can just crank this here. So even that sounds pretty good. And then you can just shape the sound before you then bounce it out to audio. Treat it like you're running it through your own processing, and yeah, you'll come out with something that sounds pretty cool. What you then want to do after that point is you want to take the audio file and basically chop up certain small elements. So I think by the looks of it, I chopped this kind of first section here like that. And I also chopped this little section here. So you want to take little splices of the audio file, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put a multi-effects plugin on those individual splices and then bounce that to audio. So the multi-effects plugin of choice that I used was Portal. So if I turn this on here, there we go. And if I just mute all the other regions and just turn on, say, this little region here, if I then just play this with Portal playing, you can see that it's now affected it. And I can move this around here, and it makes some really cool effects. I love this plugin for doing this sort of stuff. Totally recommend it. It's got all these different kind of groups that you can dive into. Well worth it. If you're in Logic, there is a multi-effects plugin down here. I think it's called Fat Effects with a PH. There you go. So you've got this here. And this has a few rhythmic things going on down here. You've got some synth stuff here as well. You can even create your own, but I honestly just recommend multi-effects just to speed up the workflow a little bit. And some of these multi-effects plugins just are absolutely crazy. In Logic as well, if you hold down Shift Option P, it opens up the selection-based processing window here. So you can take, say, just this one file here, add a bunch of plugins onto it. So let's say I want to add the overdrive here, and I'll crank that a little bit, and then let's throw on some reverb, and let's get Valhalla on there like that. And then I can just apply these effects. I'll add the effect tail. I can just apply them to this one section here, and you see it's now bounced out. And so I can then take that and I can reverse it. I can do all sorts of stuff here. So that is the way that you do it if you don't have a multi-effects plugin. However, if you do have one, I definitely recommend diving into that. What you'll find with some of these effects plugins is they create a lot of cool, interesting sounds. And so I basically did that. I just ran through the presets, bounced out these little sections here. And then what you want to do is you want to look at that audio file that you just bounced out and start finding parts that sound really, really cool. So you can see here that I've done exactly that. And I've done this a few times, and you drag them to a new track and you just start stacking. And wherever you place an effect, you ideally want to remove part of that original synth. So you can see I've got the original synth here. Let me just turn off all the effects I've got on here. I've got the original synth here that's been chopped up. And the reason I've chopped it up, as I said, is because I've replaced it with these effects here. Like that. So you see that's a really cool sound. I can't remember what the parameter or the preset was on Portal, but I remember hearing that as a result of affecting this part here. And I thought that sounded really, really cool. And I think, yeah, it's not even reversed. It's just as it was. So I chopped it and I blended it in. And this, you know, takes a little bit of manual labor. You got to dive in and start fading in the sounds, but you can get some really cool stuff. I then got this other one down here, which sounds like this, which is like a really cool sort of bending note. And again, that came from probably this one here. If not, it would have come from this one over here. And I thought it sounded really, really cool. There's another one over here, which sounds like this. And this is just like a kind of bleeds over and blends sort of these two audio files here. Like that. Super fun. And then I've got this really awesome one here where I just took a very small section and then just looped it over like that. When you have your different parts here, you can then process them individually. So you can see on this first track here, I've put a little bit of RC20. I've distorted it a bit, given it some space, adding a bit of a long decay. And I think I've pretty much done the same on most of them here. Yeah, RC20 on the other one here. On this one, I've done effect rack instead. And I think this is probably just, basically the same processing chain, but with a different plugin. So Decapitator, which is the saturation and drive and stuff, and then using Primal Tap to give it some vibe. Could have probably achieved the same thing with RC20. And then this one, I'm just using this kind of, it's emulating an old sampler. the SP950, and I'm just running this longer reverb sound through there, which sounds pretty cool, I think. And then altogether you get this. Which I think sounds really, really awesome. But a bonus tip, if you want to make it extra cool and saucy, is to then put all of them into a group. As you can see, I've got this kind of track stack here. So when I close it, I just have one sort of track essentially, and then I process the track. So you can do it that way, or you can bus all the tracks out. It's entirely up to you, but then you want to affect this track. And so what I've done is I added a tape machine. My goal with this sound was to have it sound really analog and really just bouncy. So that was the first thing that I added. I then added this module here and added a bit of extra chorus. And I think, where's the mix? There it is. I'm mixing it in at about 25% just here. I'm then adding a bit of mix glue to it, so in this case the compressor, and this looks to be a parallel compressor here. Yeah, doing quite a lot of compression there, and then I'm blending that in at about 30%. This is just giving it a bit more energy, and then I'm finishing with a relatively new plugin that I got relatively recently called Intelligent Dynamics by Waves, and this dynamically makes the audio kind of pop a little bit more. It kind of analyzes the audio and responds based on its input, so you'll see. And the reason why you want to process the bus with all the effects is because it then makes it sound like one complete sound, one unified performance. So if I take them all off here, this is how it sounded. Put them all on. And yeah, it just kind of glues everything together. I absolutely love this sample. I think it sounds wicked, and it really inspired me to create a bunch more stuff for this song. So yeah, I just thought this was a cool trick. I wanted to share it with you. So give it a go in your next song and then let me know how you get on. If you are looking for someone to help you take your songs from either a demo or just a rough idea into something professional, fully release ready, and you want help through the entire process, then check out the link in the description down below, fill out the form, and we'll jump on a call. We'll see if we're a good fit. And if we are, we might be able to find ways to help get your songs to that sort of professional release ready level. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.